There are very few moments in life that bring pure joy, happiness and elation. Now this is a PG channel most of the time, so excluding the obvious, that could mean meeting the love of your life, getting married, the hatching of your firstborn child, or even pulling a Dark Charizard from a Pokemon Team Rocket booster pack in the year 2000. Well, my N64kers, today is one of those days. After over a decade of N64 game reviews amongst other videos on the channel, I can finally polish off the final sports game to be reviewed that was released in the West with this video, All-Star Baseball 2001. Released in the year 2000 after having been developed by High Voltage Software and published by Acclaim, ASB 2001 may at first glance appear to be yet another annual update to the ever popular All-Star Baseball series of games, which first launched on N64 way back in 1998. And the first thing you may have noticed is that this time the development reins were passed on to High Voltage Software instead of Acclaim Entertainment, who had previously had sole reins of the franchise. But for anyone expecting major differences, however, you'll likely be pleased to know that it seems more or less that High Voltage were given the source code and told just to continue work on the series, rather than starting from scratch and creating something entirely new. In simple terms, it means if you've enjoyed the previous entries in the series, then you will feel right at home here. But for anyone who wasn't already a fan of the series, you will unlikely find much new here to suddenly make you want to seek out a copy. On its release, it achieved very favourable reviews across the media outlets, and in terms of simulation baseball titles on the console, it's often considered as the best by fans of the sport. But unless you're new here, you'll know by now that baseball games really are by far my least favourite American sports titles, and so as always, much of the intricacies of the game will often be lost on me. Disclaimer out of the way, and what do we get with this title? Well, as always, you have every MLB team, over 700 licensed players from the Players Association, and all stadia including classics such as Yankee Stadium, which given my love for New York means that's often where I choose to play. You can go ahead and boo me in the comments now. There's also a Legends team, a much refined arcade mode experience and animations which improve yet again over the already fantastic player models seen in the previous series entries. There's expansion pack support, multiplayer game modes and AI which alters players for weather conditions, day or night games, and even down to the stadium in which the players are taking place in. Perhaps the most striking feature of the game is its graphics, and the expansion pack does its magic here, all without slowing down the frame rate of the game, and it just means that in terms of N64 visuals, it's one of the best looking sports games on the system. In modern times, it does still look, well, pretty decent. But I remember playing this as a weekend rental after its release back in the day and being absolutely blown away by small nuances like certain batting poses and pitching animations. The menus are all clean and sharp, albeit a little bland, and overall the game really doesn't pop as a colour palette, and it seems very muted and subdued. The stadia are very well made and often feel cold though and very desolate. Now perhaps it's given the lack of animation outside of the players themselves, but they do just seem a bit lifeless. The same too can be said for the sound. Now sure, you have some fairly good quality commentary here and the ball hits do sound amazingly accurate, but the atmosphere in the game often falls flat and doesn't really bring any sense of fun or excitement. You can smash a home run straight out of the park and you'd never know from listening to the crowd reaction because there's barely a bubble of, well, any form of excitement. The simulation mode appears very in-depth and with drafting, create a player and full seasons to play through, but like many people I much preferred the arcade mode and the home run derby mode. The simplified controls for these modes make it much more pick up and play accessible, and unless you want to get bogged down in tiny details like player stats, then this is perhaps the best way for the common man to get some pleasure from this title. In any mode, however, there are some very minor flaws. At times there are very visible glitches in the AI, with players being called out when at first glance they appear to be in. In addition, even on rookie mode, the opponent AI seems way off the charts, and almost any contact I made with the ball when batting resulted in either a home run being caught out by a field player who was always in the right place at the right time. In short though, I often think it comes down to this. If you want a simulation experience, then ASB 2001 will likely be the way to go. But But if you want something with an arcade feel, then Major League Baseball or the latter Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest from Nintendo and Angel Studios, it just feels like a lot more of an overall fun-filled game. But in the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, that's all I've got to say about that. But I do want to hear from you, so for today's topic of conversation in the comments section, I want to hear which baseball game you feel takes the crown on the console. Also, does anyone actually still play these old simulation sports titles, or like me, do you often just prefer to stick to the more arcade-like sports games from the retro era? As always though, let me know your thoughts and feelings, comments and views down below, and until next time.